You think betrayal announces itself with thunder. It doesn't. It slips in quietly. A missed text here, a strange perfume there, a weekend with the guys that leaves you staring at an empty side of the bed. You explain it away because love makes excellent excuses. You tell yourself you're paranoid, insecure, overthinking. You keep choosing trust until trust stops being a choice and becomes a habit you can't break. And then, one ordinary afternoon, under a too bright Texas sun, the habit shatters. You see the truth with your own eyes, and it isn't dramatic or cinematic. It's small. It's cruel. It's him feeding spoonfuls of creme brulee to another woman on the rooftop patio where you once celebrated your second anniversary. His laugh, the one you thought belonged to you, floats across the street like smoke. His fingers brush hair from her face in that tender way he used to save for late Sunday mornings when the world felt safe. In that second, everything you built together becomes a lie he told while looking you in the eye. My name is Mia. Back then, I was 26, living in a sunlit two-bedroom loft in East Austin that smelled like coffee and eucalyptus from the diffuser I kept running 24/7. I worked remotely as a senior content strategist for a mid-sized digital agency. Good pay, flexible hours, the kind of job that let me wear yoga pants to meetings and still get promoted. I was the stable one, the planner, the one who paid the rent on the first of every month, who remembered to renew the car insurance, who made sure we had groceries before the fridge echoed. Ethan called me his rock. I used to smile when he said it. Now I realize rocks don't get to feel, they just get stepped on. We met at a friend's rooftop party during one of those perfect Austin fall evenings. String lights, live music drifting from downstairs, the skyline glittering like it was showing off just for us. He was 28, tall, tousled dark hair, easy grin, the kind of guy who could talk to anyone and make them feel like they'd known him forever. He worked freelance as a video editor, project-based, he always said, which mostly meant long, dry spells between gigs and me covering the bills without complaint. I didn't mind at first. I loved his passion, the way his eyes lit up when he showed me rough cuts of commercials or music videos he'd edited. I loved how he'd pull me onto the couch at 2 a.m. to watch old movies, how he'd kiss the top of my head and whisper, "You're my favorite person." For the first year and a half, it felt real. We talked about the future the way young couples do. Vague, but hopeful. A house with a yard someday. Maybe kids. Definitely travel once his career took off. I pictured us growing old in that loft, adding photos to the gallery wall, arguing over paint colors for a place we'd eventually buy together. Then the cracks appeared. It started small, almost unnoticeable. He'd come home at 2 a.m. smelling faintly of vanilla and something floral that wasn't my perfume. "Bar was packed," he'd say, shrugging. "Lost track of time." I'd nod, swallow the question burning my tongue, tell myself I was being controlling. Then the guy's weekends started. Friday to Sunday, no details, just "need to recharge, babe." He'd return tired but glowing, phone full of new memes he'd gotten from the group chat. I'd scroll through his Instagram stories, he'd never posted much anyway, and notice gaps, hours where nothing appeared even though he used to document everything. Sex changed too. It went from hungry and playful to mechanical. He'd still initiate, but it felt like checking a box. Afterward, he'd roll over fast, back to me, breathing steady while I lay awake wondering what I'd done wrong. I started reading relationship articles at 3 a.m., searching for signs of emotional distance, wondering if I was the problem. I gained 7 pounds from stress eating takeout alone in front of Netflix. I lost them again when anxiety killed my appetite. I tried talking, really talking. One rainy Thursday night, I sat him down on our gray sectional, the one I'd saved 6 months to buy, and said, "Ethan, I feel like you're pulling away. I miss us. Can we try therapy? Even just a few sessions?" My voice cracked on the last word. He stared at the TV even though it was off, jaw tight. "You're overreacting, Mia. Work's been stressful. I'm not cheating or anything dramatic. I just need space sometimes." He reached over, squeezed my knee like that settled it. We're fine. I wanted to believe him so badly I almost convinced myself. Then came the Dallas trip. He packed light, one duffel, favorite hoodie, laptop. Going to crash with my brother for a few days, he said while folding t-shirts. Need to clear my head. We've both been tense. He kissed my forehead the way you kiss a child you're humoring. I stood in the doorway watching his taillights disappear down the street, arms wrapped around myself like I could hold the pieces together. Day 1, silence. Normal, I told myself. He's decompressing. Day 2, a single text at noon. Love you, heart emoji. I stared at it until the screen went dark. Day 3, nothing. Day 4, I had a client coffee meeting downtown. It wrapped early. The sun was high, the kind of blinding Texas light that makes everything look overexposed. I decided to treat myself to lunch at the Perch, our spot. Rooftop tables, fairy lights even in daylight, incredible skyline view. I figured I'd sit, order the burrata salad I loved, maybe text him a photo and tease him about missing out. I never made it to the hostess stand. I saw him first because of the laugh. That unmistakable, head-back, full-throated laugh he used when something really amused him. It cut through the chatter like a blade. My body recognized it before my brain did, stomach dropping, knees softening. He was at our table, the corner one with the best view, across from a girl, long dark hair, white sundress, gold hoop earrings catching the light. She was beautiful in that effortless way that makes you feel instantly plain. He leaned forward, spooned a bite of creme brulee, held it to her lips. She laughed again, took the bite, touched his wrist like it was the most natural thing in the world. He smiled, that slow, private smile he used to give me after we made love. My vision tunneled, sound muffled. The world became them and the space around them and nothing else. I don't know how long I stood there. 10 seconds? 30? Long enough for him to tuck that strand of hair behind her ear, long enough for her to lean in and kiss the corner of his mouth, long enough for my phone to feel like lead in my hand. I lifted it slowly, like someone else was controlling my arm, zoomed, focused, click, click, click. 7 photos, clear faces, time-stamped, geotagged by the restaurant's Wi-Fi, proof that would hold up in any court of public opinion or private heartbreak. Then I turned, walked down the stairs on legs that didn't feel like mine, crossed the street, got in my car, drove home. I don't remember the drive, just flashes, red light, horn behind me, my hands white-knuckled on the wheel. When I pulled into the parking garage, I sat there for 10 full minutes, engine running, staring at the concrete wall. Tears didn't come. Rage didn't come, only a cold, clear certainty. I walked upstairs, locked the door, sat on the couch, my couch, and opened the photos. Every detail burned in. The bottle of rosé between them, condensation dripping onto the tablecloth, her manicured nails on his forearm, his wedding ring. Wait, no, we weren't married, but the silver band he wore on his right hand, the one I gave him for our 1-year anniversary, glinted in the sun. He still wore it while feeding her dessert at our table. I zoomed in on his face. He looked happy, relaxed, in love. The injustice hit like nausea. I had begged for scraps of attention for months. I had cried alone in our shower so he wouldn't hear. I had paid the rent, cooked dinners he barely ate, planned date nights he canceled. And here he was, giving someone else the version of himself I'd spent years trying to reach. I didn't scream. I didn't throw things. I opened my laptop. Because here's what people don't tell you about betrayal. Once you see it clearly, the fog lifts. And in that clarity, power returns. I pulled up the lease first. My name only, signed 2 months before he moved in. He was never added, not even as an authorized occupant. I remembered the day I asked. He said, "Babe, it's your place. I don't want to complicate things with paperwork." I thought it was sweet. Now I saw it for what it was, convenient. Next, the furniture inventory in my head. Gray sectional, bought with my bonus check, dining table and 6 chairs, Craigslist find I refinished myself, king bed frame and mattress, my splurge after a big promotion, TV, soundbar, coffee table, bookshelves, kitchen appliances, even the damn diffuser, all mine. His contributions? A gaming chair that looked like a race car seat, his PS5, clothes, toiletries, a box of old comics. That was it. Legally, he had no claim to anything except what he could carry out in garbage bags. I opened my calendar, counted days, realized I could give 60 days notice tomorrow and still have 35 to execute everything quietly. I called Javier, my landlord. He picked up on the second ring. "Mia, how's my favorite tenant?" His warm voice almost broke me. I swallowed hard. "Hey, Javier, I need to give notice. I'm moving out in about 35 days. Silence. Then, gently, "Everything okay, Mia?" "It will be," I said. "Can we keep it quiet for now? No showings until I say?" "Of course. You've always paid early, never caused trouble. Whatever you need." I thanked him, hung up, and felt the first real breath I'd taken in months enter my lungs. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the floor of the spare room, soon to be empty, and started a list. Boxes needed, storage unit to rent, under my maiden name, new apartment search, already bookmarking 3 places, movers, professional, discreet, scheduled for a Wednesday morning when he'd be at a freelance call, photos printed, multiple sets, script rehearsed in my head, calm, factual, no yelling. Every item on the list felt like armor sliding into place. Because rage is loud and messy. Revenge, the kind that lasts, is quiet, precise, and devastating. By dawn, I had a timeline. By noon, I had a storage unit booked. By evening, I was back on the couch, my couch, staring at the front door, waiting for him to walk through it and lie to my face one more time. He had no idea the clock had already started ticking. The days after I saw him on that rooftop patio felt like walking through thick fog while carrying a live wire in my chest. Every breath hurt a little more than the last, but I couldn't let it show. Not yet. Not until every piece was in place. Ethan came home that evening around 8 p.m., duffel slung over his shoulder like he'd just returned from a legitimate brotherly visit. His hair was still damp from whatever shower he'd taken before driving back. Probably hers, I thought, the image flashing unbidden. Him stepping out of her bathroom, towel around his waist, smiling that same easy smile he was about to aim at me. "Hey, Beb," he said, dropping the bag by the door and leaning in for a kiss. His lips tasted faintly of mint, fresh toothpaste, or maybe he'd brushed after kissing her goodbye. I let him press his mouth to mine for 2 seconds before turning my head slightly, making it look natural. "Long drive?" I asked, voice even. "Yeah, traffic was brutal coming back into town." He kicked off his shoes, wandered to the fridge, pulled out a beer like nothing had changed. "Missed you, though. How was your week?" I watched his back as he twisted the cap off. The casualness of it clawed at me. He had spent days with her, laughing, touching, sharing meals at our spot, and now he was here asking about my week like I was still the center of his universe. "It was fine," I said. "Busy with client revisions, the usual." He nodded, took a long pull from the bottle. "Cool, I'm wiped. Gonna shower and crash early if that's okay." "Of course," I forced a small smile. "Go ahead." As soon as the bathroom door clicked shut and the water started running, I moved. Quietly, methodically. I opened his duffel just enough to peek inside. No women's items, no receipts, no hotel keycards. He'd been careful, or maybe she lived close enough that he didn't need overnight proof. Either way, it didn't matter. I already had the photos. I didn't need more evidence, I needed time. That first night back, I lay beside him in my bed, staring at the ceiling fan spinning lazy circles above us. His breathing deepened into sleep within minutes. Soft snores I used to find comforting. Now they grated like sandpaper on raw nerves. I slipped out of bed around 2 a.m., padded to the living room, and sat cross-legged on the floor with my laptop open to a dimmed screen. I started small, practical, things that wouldn't raise alarms if he woke up and wandered out. First, the storage unit.
I found a climate-controlled one 10 minutes away, booked it online for the next morning under Mia Reynolds, my maiden name, the one still on my driver's license because I'd never bothered to change it after we got serious. Paid for 3 months up front with my personal card, the one he didn't have access to.
Next, apartment hunting. I scrolled Zillow and apartments.com in incognito mode, bookmarking places that felt like fresh starts. One caught my eye immediately, a one-bedroom in a newer building near the river. High floor, balcony overlooking the water, rent a little steep but within my budget now that I wouldn't be subsidizing his freelance lifestyle. I sent an inquiry at 3:17 a.m., heart pounding as if someone might catch me. By 4 a.m., I had a list. Pack non-essentials first. Books, winter clothes, sentimental items, grandma's china, photo albums pre-Ethan, my college diploma frame. Label boxes vaguely. Office supplies, seasonal decor, miscellaneous. Move them out gradually. 1 or 2 boxes per day when he was out networking or at coffee shops pretending to edit videos. Print photos tomorrow at the UPS store downtown. Matte finish, 8x10s, multiple copies. Contact movers next week, get quotes, book for the Wednesday 5 weeks out. Rehearse the confrontation in my head. Calm voice, short sentences, no emotion. Let the facts do the damage. I closed the laptop, crept back to bed, and lay on my side facing away from him. His arm draped over my waist in his sleep. The habit. I let it stay there because removing it might wake him, but inside I felt nothing but cold calculation. The next morning, he left early for a client call. Perfect. I drove to the storage unit first, signed the paperwork, got the key, then to the UPS store. The clerk, a bored 20-something with purple hair, raised an eyebrow at the stack of photos, but said nothing as she rang them up. I paid cash. Back home, I hid the prints in the bottom drawer of my desk under a stack of old tax documents. Safe. Invisible. That afternoon, he texted, "Grabbing drinks with some editor friends tonight. Home late. Love you." I stared at the message. Love you. The words looked hollow now, like props in a play he'd stopped rehearsing seriously. "Sounds fun," I replied. "Have a good time." I spent the evening packing. Not frantic, slow, deliberate. I started with the bookshelf in the spare room, my favorite novels, the poetry collection from college, the travel guides we'd bought together but never used. I wrapped them in bubble wrap, taped the boxes shut, wrote "Books Storage" on the side in black marker. Carried them down to my car one at a time when the hallway was quiet. 3 trips. No one saw. When he stumbled in at 1:30 a.m. smelling of beer and, yes, that same floral perfume, I pretended to be asleep. He showered, crawled into bed, passed out. I waited until his breathing evened, then got up again. Another box. Kitchen things I cared about. My grandmother's cast iron skillet, the French press I bought on a solo trip to New Orleans before we met, the set of wine glasses my best friend gave me as a housewarming gift. Packed. Hidden in the trunk. This became the rhythm. Days blurred into a strange double life. By day, I was Mia, the girlfriend, making coffee, asking about his day, laughing at his jokes, suggesting we watch a movie together. I even let him pull me close on the couch once or twice, enduring the kisses that felt like betrayal in slow motion. I told myself it was camouflage, necessary. Every fake smile bought me another day of preparation. By night, I was someone else, packing, planning, researching. I found the movers, a company called Swift Relocations with excellent reviews for discreet moves. I called from the parking lot of my gym, voice low, explained I needed a quick, quiet loadout on a specific Wednesday morning. They quoted me a fair price for 3 guys and a truck. I booked it, gave a deposit with my card. Done. I toured the new apartment on a lunch break. The agent, a bubbly woman named Carla, walked me through the space. Open kitchen, big windows, hardwood floors that echoed when I walked. No ghosts, no memories of him cooking breakfast shirtless or us dancing in the living room to bad playlists. Just clean potential. "I'll take it," I told her, signed the application on my phone right there in the model unit. Credit check cleared in 48 hours. Keys in 2 weeks.
Every small victory felt like oxygen after drowning. But the emotional toll mounted. Some nights the mask slipped. I'd be folding laundry, his t-shirts mixed with mine, and suddenly the smell of his cologne would hit me, and I'd have to sit on the floor of the closet, knees to chest, breathing through the ache. I remembered the early days, him surprising me with flowers for no reason, late-night drives to the hill country just to watch stars, the way he'd whisper, "I'm so lucky," against my neck. Now, those memories felt poisoned, tainted. Every good moment retroactively questioned. Was he already talking to her then? Was he comparing us as he held me? I stopped eating much. Coffee became my main food group. Sleep came in fits. 3 hours here, 2 there. Dark circles bloomed under my eyes. I covered them with concealer and told him I was just stressed from work.
He bought it, or didn't care enough to question. One evening, about 2 weeks in, he tried to initiate sex. We were on the couch watching some true crime doc. His hand slid up my thigh, casual at first, then insistent. I froze. "Not tonight," I said softly. "I'm exhausted." He sighed, that dramatic, put-upon sigh he'd perfected. "You've been saying that a lot lately." "I know, work's insane." He pulled back, stared at the TV. "You sure it's just work?" My heart stuttered. Did he suspect? I turned to him, kept my face neutral. "What else would it be?" A long pause. Then he shrugged. "Nothing. Forget it." He went to bed early. I stayed up packing the linen closet, my good sheets, the fluffy towels I'd bought last Black Friday, the throw blanket we used to cuddle under. All mine. Close calls started happening. Once he came home early from a meeting. I was mid-box in the spare room. Winter coats, scarves, a box of holiday decorations I'd never let him touch because he broke ornaments. I heard the front door, shoved the box under the bed just as he walked in. "What are you doing in here?" he asked, eyebrow raised. "Organizing," I said smoothly, trying to declutter. Thought if we ever moved to a bigger place, we should start now. He looked around, seemed satisfied. "Cool. Need help?" "No, I've got it. Go relax." He left. I waited until his footsteps faded, then dragged the box back out, finished packing, moved it to my car under cover of darkness. Another time he noticed the empty spots on the bookshelf. "Where'd all your books go?" "Storage," I lied. "They were getting dusty. Figured I'd rotate some out." He nodded slowly. "Huh, okay." The underestimation burned. He really thought I was that oblivious, that passive, that I'd just keep paying the bills, cooking meals, waiting for him to figure things out while he lived a double life. But the more he underestimated me, the stronger the plan felt. I started documenting everything. Screenshots of our texts, his Dallas trip lies, the late nights, the love yous that rang false. Bank statements showing I paid rent, utilities, groceries. Photos of the furniture receipts still in my email. A running log of every lie, every late night, every perfume-scented shirt. Insurance, in case he tried to spin the narrative later. 4 weeks in, the apartment was noticeably emptier if you looked closely. But he didn't. He was too busy texting. Phone always face down now, screen lighting up every few minutes. I'd catch him smiling at it, thumbs flying. I'd turn away, swallow the bile, keep packing. One night I sat in the bathtub, door locked, water running to mask any sound, and let myself feel it all for the first time since the rooftop. The betrayal, the humiliation, the years I'd invested in someone who saw me as disposable. Tears came then, silent, burning. I pressed a washcloth to my mouth so he wouldn't hear if he walked by. But when the crying stopped, something harder remained. Resolve, cold, unbreakable. I dried off, dressed in sweats, walked out like nothing happened. He was on the couch, phone in hand, typing. "Everything okay?" he asked without looking up. "Yeah, just needed a bath." He nodded, went back to texting. I went to the spare room, taped another box shut. Moving day was now 10 days away. The end game was closing in, and he still had no idea.
The turning point didn't arrive with fireworks or a dramatic epiphany under a stormy sky. It arrived at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, exactly 23 days after I'd first seen him feed her creme brulee on that rooftop. I was sitting alone in the half-empty spare room, now more storage unit than guest space, surrounded by sealed cardboard boxes, labeled in my careful handwriting. The overhead light was off, only the blue-white glow from my laptop screen lit my face. Ethan was asleep in the master bedroom, probably dreaming of whatever excuses he'd tell himself tomorrow.
I had just finished typing the final entry in my private document titled simply Timeline. It was 37 pages long now. Every lie, every late night, every perfume-scented shirt, every love you text sent while he was with her, every time I'd cried in the shower so he wouldn't hear. I'd even included screenshots of bank transfers, rent payments, utility bills, grocery runs, all from my account. A quiet, irrefutable record of who had carried this life and who had coasted through it. I saved the file, emailed it to myself at my work address, the one he didn't know the password for, then deleted the local copy from my laptop. Paranoia? Maybe, but I wasn't taking chances. That night, something shifted inside me. Not rage anymore, not even grief. It was colder, cleaner, like the moment after a fever breaks and your body finally remembers how to regulate itself again. I realized I no longer needed him to confess. I no longer needed him to apologize. I no longer needed him to see me cry or scream or beg for answers. I just needed him gone, and I was going to make that happen on my terms. The next morning, I woke before him, 5:42 a.m., alarm set to silent vibration. I slipped out of bed, dressed in leggings and an oversized hoodie, made coffee in near darkness, and sat at the kitchen island reviewing the final checklist. 7 days until moving day. 7 days until the movers arrived at 7:15 a.m. while he was supposedly on an early freelance call at his favorite coffee shop across town. 7 days until I handed him the stack of photos and watched the color drain from the face I used to kiss goodnight. I ran through contingencies in my head the way I used to prep for big client presentations. If he wakes early and catches the movers, Javier, landlord, is on standby downstairs with the master key and a calm explanation that the lease is month to month in my name only. If he tries to physically stop the move, movers are instructed to call the non-emergency police line if anyone becomes aggressive. I've already spoken to the dispatcher at the station. They know it's a civil lease matter. No domestic violence, just a breakup with property division. If he begs, cries, promises to change, script is memorized. This is non-negotiable. You have until midnight. No elaboration, no second chances. If he calls mutual friends mid-crisis, let them hear his version first. The photos will circulate later. Truth has better legs than excuses. I closed the notebook, sipped the last of my coffee, and felt something almost like peace. The week crawled by in agonizing slow motion and lightning speed at once. Monday, I packed the last of the kitchen items I cared about, my Le Creuset Dutch oven, birthday gift from my mom, the set of Japanese knives I bought after my first big promotion, the ceramic mugs I'd collected from every city I'd visited before him. I left the cheap Target ones he liked. Let him keep those. He noticed the cabinets looking sparse when he went to make ramen that night. Where's the good pot? Deep clean, I lied smoothly. It's in storage for now. We barely use it. He shrugged. Okay, guess ramen it is. Tuesday, final walkthrough of the new apartment. I drove there during my lunch break, parked 3 blocks away so no one from our circle would spot my car near his usual haunts. Carla, the leasing agent, met me with keys already cut. The place smelled like fresh paint and possibility, floor-to-ceiling windows, hardwood that gleamed under afternoon sun, a balcony just big enough for 2 chairs and a tiny table. I stood there alone, wind lifting my hair, and whispered to the empty air, "Soon." I signed the final lease documents on my phone while sitting on the bare floor. First month's rent and security deposit cleared instantly. Keys in my purse. Mine. Wednesday, I rehearsed the confrontation out loud for the first time.
alone in the car, parked in an empty lot behind a strip mall. "Ethan, look at these." Hand him photos. "I took them 3 weeks ago. I know everything. This apartment is in my name, the furniture is mine, you were never on the lease. Javier has already been informed. New tenants move in Friday. You have until midnight tonight to remove your personal belongings. Anything left after that goes curbside. That's all." I said it 5 times, varying the inflection. Soft, firm, emotionless. Each version colder than the last. By the 5th recitation, my voice sounded like someone I respected. Thursday, the last full day we would ever share a roof. He tried to be sweet that evening, came home with takeout from our favorite Thai place, pad see for me, green curry for him, set the table, lit the candle I kept on the windsill. "Thought we could have a nice night," he said, smiling that boyish grin that used to melt me. "We've both been stressed. Let's just be us again."
I looked at him across the candlelight, saw the same face that had laughed with her on the rooftop, the same hands that had tucked hair behind her ear, the same mouth that had kissed me goodnight while lying to me every day for months. I ate slowly, nodded when he spoke, let him talk about some new video project he was pitching soon, let him reach across the table and squeeze my hand. When he leaned in to kiss me after dinner, I turned my cheek just enough that his lips landed there instead. "Tired," I murmured. He sighed, but didn't push. We watched one episode of a show we used to love. I barely registered the plot. My mind was already in tomorrow morning, 7:15 a.m., movers in navy polos, boxes moving like clockwork. At 10:30 p.m., he yawned, stretched, said he was heading to bed. "Coming?" "In a bit, gonna finish some work emails." He kissed the top of my head, habit, and disappeared down the hall. I waited until I heard the bedroom door close, then the toilet flush, then the bed creak as he settled in. Then I moved. I carried the last 3 boxes from the spare room to my car, locked them in the trunk, came back inside, wiped down the kitchen counters even though they were already clean, turned off lights one by one, stood in the darkened living room and looked around at what was left. His gaming chair glowing faintly from the standby light on his monitor, his shoes by the door, the half-dead plant he'd promised to water for 6 months. I felt nothing sentimental, only anticipation. I went to the desk drawer, pulled out the stack of printed photos, 10 copies, enough for him, Javier, and one set I'd leave taped to the fridge if he tried to deny it all later. I placed them in a plain manila envelope, wrote nothing on the front. Then I went to bed, on my side, back to him, pretending to sleep. He rolled toward me at some point in the night, arms sliding around my waist like always. I let it stay there, not because I wanted it, but because removing it might wake him, and I needed him rested for tomorrow. I didn't sleep at all. I lay awake, counting hours backward from 7:15 a.m. 6 hours, 5 hours, 40 minutes, 5 hours. When my phone vibrated silently under my pillow at 5:45 a.m., I slipped out of bed without disturbing the sheets, dressed in the bathroom, brushed my teeth, pulled my hair into a low ponytail, looked at myself in the mirror. I didn't recognize the woman staring back, calm, clear-eyed, almost serene. Good. I made coffee, black, strong, sat at the island with the envelope beside my mug. At 6:58 a.m., I texted the movers, "Ready when you are." Reply came instantly, ETA 7:12, 3 of us, all set. At 7:03 a.m., I heard the shower start in the master bath. Perfect. He always took 20-minute showers when he had an early call. I opened the front door a crack, propped it with the doorstop. At 7:14 a.m., I heard the elevator ding down the hall. Footsteps, low voices. 3 men in navy polos appeared. Professional, quiet, efficient. The leader, a stocky guy with a clipboard, nodded at me. "Mia, Swift Relocations. We're here for the loadout." I handed him the color-coded floor plan I'd drawn 2 weeks earlier. Green tape on everything that was mine, red X on his gaming setup and clothes. Everything green.
I said softly. "Start with living room, quiet as possible, please." They moved in like ghosts. First the sectional, sofa, love seat, ottoman, disassembled and carried out. Then the dining table I'd refinished myself. Then the coffee table, end tables, bookshelves, now bare. I stood in the kitchen doorway, coffee in hand, watching my life be dismantled piece by piece. It should have hurt. It didn't. It felt like surgery, removing something diseased so the body could finally heal. At 7:38 a.m., the shower shut off. I heard him humming, some pop song he'd been obsessed with lately, as he dried off. 30 seconds later, the bathroom door opened. He stepped into the hallway in a towel, hair dripping, and froze. Two movers were lifting the TV off the wall mount. Another was rolling the rug we'd bought together at a flea market. "What the fuck?" His voice cracked on the last word. I set my mug down carefully, picked up the manila envelope, walked toward him. He looked from me, to the movers, to the empty living room, and back to me. "Mia, what is this?" I stopped 3 feet away, held out the envelope. "Open it." He took it with shaking hands, pulled out the top photo, then the next, then the next. His face went from confusion to recognition to horror in under 4 seconds. He stared at the images, him and her, rooftop, creme brulee, hand on her back, kiss on the corner of her mouth. Then he looked out at me. "Mia, I can explain." "No," I said. My voice was calm, almost gentle. "You can't." He opened his mouth again, closed it, looked wildly around as the king bed frame disappeared down the hallway. "This is my apartment, my name on the lease, my furniture. You were never added to anything. Javier knows. New tenants move in Friday. You have until midnight tonight to get your personal belongings out. Anything left after that goes to the curb." He stared at me like I'd spoken another language. You're actually doing this?" "Yes."
One of the movers cleared his throat. "Ma'am, bedroom's almost cleared, just the mattress and his stuff left. Where do you want the mattress?" "Leave it," I said. "It's staying until he removes his things." Ethan's knees buckled slightly. He caught himself on the wall. "You planned this," he whispered. "For weeks," I answered. "Every day you lied to me, I planned." He looked down at the photos again, then at the nearly empty apartment, then back at me. Tears welled in his eyes. "Mia, please, I fucked up. I know I did. But we can fix this. I'll stop seeing her. I'll go to therapy. No." The word landed like a door slamming. He flinched. I took one step closer. "You didn't just cheat, Ethan. You humiliated me. You let me beg for your attention while you gave it to someone else. You let me pay for this life while you lived another one. You wore the ring I gave you while you touched her. So no, there is no we anymore. There is only me removing you from my story." I turned away, walked past him, past the movers who were pretending not to listen, past the half-empty living room. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I simply kept walking until I reached the balcony door, opened it, stepped outside into the morning sun, and closed the glass behind me. Behind me, I heard him start to sob. I didn't turn around. The balcony door clicked shut behind me with a soft finality that felt louder than any scream could have been. Outside, the Austin morning was already heating up, sun climbing fast, cicadas starting their electric hum in the trees below, distant traffic rumbling like a heartbeat the city couldn't slow down. I leaned my forearms on the railing, palms flat against warm metal, and stared at the skyline I'd looked at 1,000 times from this exact spot. The Frost Bank Tower still gleamed gold in the east. The Long Center's curved roof still caught light like a silver wave. Nothing had changed out there. Everything had changed in here. Behind the glass, I could hear muffled voices, Ethan's rising in pitch, the low, calm responses from the lead mover, the occasional thud of something heavy being set down. I didn't turn around. I didn't need to watch. I already knew the choreography.
Boxes of his clothes being piled near the door, his gaming chair dragged to the center of the living room like an abandoned throne, the mattress left propped against the wall because I'd instructed them to leave anything that wasn't clearly mine. My phone buzzed once in my pocket. I ignored it. Another buzz, then another. I finally pulled it out. Ethan, Mia, please come back inside. Ethan, we need to talk. Ethan, this is insane. Ethan, I'm begging you. I read the messages without emotion, the way you read spam email. Then I turned the phone face down on the small balcony table and went back to watching the city wake up. Inside, the sounds escalated. His voice cracked into something raw. You can't just throw everything away like this. I live here too. One of the movers, probably the kind-faced one with the clipboard, answered evenly. Sir, we're following the tenant's instructions. Lease is in her name only. You've got till midnight. I pay bills here. A pause, then my voice calm and close enough that I knew he'd walked toward the balcony door. You haven't paid rent in 18 months, Ethan. Utilities, internet, groceries, my card, every month. You bought beer and takeout. That's it.
Silence stretched, thick, ugly. I heard him slump against something, maybe the wall, maybe the door frame. A low, broken sound followed. Not quite crying, more like the air leaving someone who just realized the floor was gone. I stayed outside another 20 minutes, long enough for the movers to finish the main loadout, long enough for the truck to rumble away downstairs, long enough for the apartment to feel hollow, even through the glass. When I finally stepped back inside, the change was surgical. The living room was a skeleton, bare walls where art used to hang, faint rectangles of dust where the sectional had sat for 3 years, hardwood floors scuffed from furniture being dragged. The kitchen island stood alone, no stools, no fruit bowl, no diffuser still pumping eucalyptus, only his black garbage bags, 4 of them now, waited in a sad cluster near the front door, next to the gaming chair and the propped mattress. Ethan sat on the floor with his back against the kitchen cabinets, knees drawn up, head in his hands. The photos lay scattered around him like fallen leaves. He didn't look up when I entered. I walked past him to the fridge, opened it, took out a bottle of water, twisted the cap, drank slowly. He spoke without lifting his head. You really hate me that much? I don't hate you, I just don't love you anymore. There's a difference. He laughed, a short, bitter bark. You could have just broken up with me, like a normal person. Normal people don't cheat for months while their partner pays the rent and pretends everything's fixable. He flinched, finally looked up, eyes red-rimmed, face blotchy. I didn't think you'd find out. The honesty of it almost made me laugh. Almost. That's the worst part, I said quietly. You didn't think I'd find out. You didn't think I'd do anything about it even if I did. You thought I'd stay, swallow it, keep writing the checks. He opened his mouth, closed it. No defense left. I crouched down so we were eye level. Not close enough to touch, just close enough to make sure he heard every word. I gave you 3 years. My money, my time, my trust. You gave me lies and someone else's laugh. So now I'm taking back what's mine. The apartment, the furniture, my peace. You get your clothes, your console, your chair. That's more than fair. He stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time. Who even are you right now? I'm the woman who finally stopped waiting for you to become someone worth waiting for. I stood up, walked to the front door, opened it wide. Javier will be here at noon to supervise the rest of your removal if you're still here then. Midnight is the hard cutoff. After that, anything left becomes trash. I didn't wait for a reply. I left him sitting on the bare floor and went downstairs to my car. The rest of the day passed in clean, deliberate motion. I drove to the new apartment, let myself in with the fresh keys, directed the movers where to place everything, sectional against the longest wall, dining table by the windows, bed frame reassembled in the bedroom with military precision. I unpacked only what I needed for the night,
sheets, one mug, my favorite pillow. The rest could wait. By late afternoon, the place already smelled like me. Eucalyptus from the new diffuser, coffee brewing, sunlight pouring across hardwood instead of bouncing off dusty blinds. I sat on the balcony, my balcony, with a glass of wine and watched the river turn gold, then pink, then indigo. No guilt, no second thoughts, just quiet. My phone lit up sporadically. Mutual friends. What's going on? Ethan's blowing up the group chat saying you kicked him out with no warning. Mia, call me. Photos are circulating. Holy shit, are you okay? I didn't answer any of them yet. Instead, I texted my best friend, Lena, the one person who'd known something was wrong for months. Me, it's done. He's out. I'm in a new place. Lena, you actually did it? Me, yeah. Lena, sending you wine delivery, and I'm coming over tomorrow with food and zero judgment. Me, bring both, and maybe tissues. I think the crying's coming soon. She sent a string of heart emojis and a fist bump. Around 9 p.m., one final text from Ethan arrived.
I'm at my brother's. Took what I could carry. Left the key on the island. I'm sorry. For all of it. I know it doesn't mean anything now, but I am. I read it twice. Then I blocked his number. Not out of anger, out of hygiene, the same way you wash your hands after touching something dirty. I didn't sleep much that first night. The new bed felt too big, too quiet, but it was mine. No one else's scent on the sheets, no one else's phone buzzing at 2 a.m. with messages I wasn't supposed to see. When dawn came, pale and gentle through the blinds, I got up, made coffee, stood on the balcony again. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I breathed without a knot in my chest. The fallout unfolded slowly, the way these things do. Within 48 hours, the photos had spread through our wider friend group, not because I sent them, because Ethan, in his panic, had tried to spin the story first. Mia lost it, went psycho, threw me out over nothing. But screenshots travel faster than excuses. Someone in the group chat replied with one of my rooftop shots. Ethan, mid-laugh, spoon to her lips. Caption, nothing? The thread exploded. Women in the group mostly rallied. She paid for everything while you cheated? Good for her. Some men tried to mediate. Maybe talk it out. Others stayed silent. Smart. Ethan disappeared for most social circles within a week. Couch surfing, apparently, posting vague, self-pitying Instagram stories about starting over and learning lessons. No apologies, no accountability, just aesthetic black and white photos of coffee cups and sunsets with song lyrics about heartbreak. I didn't look for long. I muted him everywhere. My own life started to regrow in small, deliberate ways. I hung new art, bright abstracts instead of the muted landscapes we'd chosen together. I bought plants, ones that needed bright light and regular care. I hosted Lena and 2 other close friends for dinner on the balcony. We laughed until our stomachs hurt. They asked gentle questions. I answered honestly. No tears that night, just relief. Work felt lighter. I took on a new client project I'd been too distracted to chase before. Got a small raise 2 months later. I started running again. Early mornings along the river trail, earbuds in, lungs burning in the best way. My body remembered how strong it could be when it wasn't carrying someone else's weight. And sometimes, rarely, but it happened, I'd think of him. Not with longing, not with hate, with something closer to curiosity. How does someone live with that kind of selfishness for so long without it hollowing them out? I didn't have the answer, didn't need it, because I wasn't hollow anymore. 6 months later, I ran into a mutual acquaintance at a coffee shop downtown. She hesitated, then came over. Hey, you look good. Really good. I smiled. Thanks, I feel good. She lowered her voice. Ethan's still telling people you overreacted, that it was just a rough patch. I sipped my latte, shrugged. He can tell whatever story makes him sleep at night. I know mine. That's enough. She nodded slowly. Most of us believe yours. Good to know. I left without asking more. That night, I stood on my balcony again. Same view, different season. Cooler air, stars sharper.
I raised my glass to the city lights, to the woman who paid the rent, who packed in secret, who walked away without breaking, to the woman who chose herself when no one else would. And I drank deeply. Because justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just closes a door, turns the key, and keeps walking toward morning. Thanks for listening to the full story. If Mia's quiet strength resonated with you, if you've ever had to rebuild yourself from someone else's wreckage, drop a heart below, share your own moment of reclaiming power, or just tell me what part hit hardest. Subscribe and hit the bell if you want more long-form revenge tales like this. Real stories, real emotions, real justice served cold. See you in the next one. Stay strong out there.